Hi, everybody. I just wanted to say to you all that we're doing these videos for fun, relaxation, a distraction, whatever you want to call it. My wife and I run a real estate company. We're in the same boat you all are in. Work's kind of stopping. I have a few friends that are still working, doing some incredible work with the health industry, and God bless them. But I just want to say that everybody, all of us, our community and outwards, they're all part of this. And just do one thing. Remember the people in your community, the people like the auto shop that we're talking about, the Country Pedals, Eli's,
Dandelion Acres.
Dandelion Acres. These people are all coming forward, doing things in the community. The restaurants are closed right now, but they need people to come eat there when we do get out of this. And so just keep in mind that we all need each other. And my wife does a lot of the senior lunches with Betty Witherall for Meals on Wheels. And we don't go down there because we're worried we don't want to hurt them. And I think they've kind of stopped those visit meals. Now they're taking meals, believe they're taking meals to houses, and they're not even able to go into houses anymore. There's no interaction that could put somebody in jeopardy. But people do care about each other, and our video is just meant to be a distraction. It's to entertain. If it does, fantastic. But we just want you to know that we care, and just to keep in mind that there are people out there that need your help, and to be courteous to everybody and make sure that we're doing the right thing by each other. We're going to get through this. I know we will.
Yes.
This country has gone through amazing things in the past, and we will make this happen. And just remember that as you get frustrated or you get scared, there's people that care. So enjoy the video. We just want to do this for fun. We enjoy you. We love everybody in our community, and we want to just pass that along and say thank you. And we keep you in our prayers and in our thoughts. So do that with everybody else as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, welcome to our first and hopefully of many, or not, depending on whether you like it or not, video with Greg and Jerry Uihlein. I'm going to make bread because right now it seems that a lot of people are struggling, not working. Maybe your kids are at home, you can put them to work. And I went to the store today and some of the shelves are bare. So we're put together a couple really easy recipes, but these are very, very good artisan style breads. So I think you're gonna love them. They do require a sourdough, and I'll walk you through that because I already made the sourdough here because I had to do it the day before. So I've already done that part. So the sourdough mix, the starter is what we call it, is a refrigerated item. You can keep it in the refrigerator as long as you want. Just stir it every once in a while. Keep the cap off loosely. And what that is 1/4 teaspoon of dry yeast. You can buy it in your store anywhere. It's granulated yeast. You can use fresh if you want. Just use a little bit less. 2 cups of warm water, and then 2 cups of all-purpose flour. You mix that together. I like to use a wide mouth mason jar, so it makes it easier to put the flour and water back in, because every time you take any out, you have to replace it with equal amounts of water and flour. Let it sit on the countertop for a little while and then put it back in the refrigerator. And this is an ingredient that you can use in sourdough. It makes it very, very flavorful, and I'll show you what that looks like after you let it sit for a day and bubble up. I think you can see that. It looks very moist and bubbly. That's been sitting for overnight. You want to do it for at least 24 hours. So let's get to the mix. This one's going to require bread flour and whole wheat flour. Buy those at the store. Unfortunately, most are out right now, but if you do have some around, you can use it. You can also use all-purpose flour, but you'll have to make adjustments at the end to where you'll have to add it to get your dough consistent. That's hard to do, so I wouldn't recommend it. I'd use the bread flour and the whole wheat flour. So let's get to it. Here in my bowl, I've already got the starter, and that is what I made on that was 1/4 teaspoon of yeast, and then 1 cup of warm water, and 1 cup of sour mix, and then 1.5 cups of bread flour the night before. And I mix that in a bowl. and then let it sit. Put a plastic over it, just let it sit in your metal bowl. So in another bowl, I'm going to take here, and I'm going to put that here, and I'm going to start with 1 cup of warm water. Honey, if you fill that up,
Yes.
Give me a cup of warm water. And then I'm going to take in here, I'm going to take the flowers while she's getting the water for me. It can be lukewarm. It doesn't have to be very, very warm. We're going to do this in two segments of the video. So I'm going to take the 1/2 a cup of whole wheat flour. Oops, wrong bowl. Put that right in here. Sorry about that, and sorry about that.
1 cup?
Of the, 1 cup of water. And you put it right in there. And then,
Good job.
so one half cup of the whole wheat. And that was the stone ground whole wheat flour. And then we're going to take we're actually going to do 2 1/4 cups. I'm going to use the cup measure, it makes it faster. 2 1/4 cups of bread flour. Now, the reason bread flour even exists, it's got a lot more gluten to it. It's what gives bread that extra stretch. It's that gluten. Have you ever made bread before? You notice it's got a lot of elasticity, and that's from the gluten. That's where bread flour comes in. It's a heartier flour than all-purpose. So that's my 2 1/4 cup of bread flour, and I put that right into the sourdough. Let me move these so you can see what I'm talking about. I put that right in the sourdough that I left in overnight. And then I'm going to take the water that she gave me. I'm going to check it for temperature.
Is that warm enough?
No.
Okay. I screwed up my only job.
And we're pausing.
Did you pause it?
And we're pausing. No, I didn't.
Okay. Look out, Baby Joe. It's real, people. Real life. Oh, there we go. Now it's warm. Just in the bowl or outside the bowl?
Put it in the bowl.
Okay.
That was not a full cup.
That was a full cup.
That was not a full cup.
Okay.
Put it full cup. Nope. Take this. It's got to be.
This is why I don't bake, people.
You have to make sure that when you're doing baking projects, you have to be precise with baking ingredients. When it's a full cup, it is actually a full cup. Same thing with all the other ingredients.
Okay, got it.
You check it for temperature, and if you can stick your finger in it and barely feel the temperature, then it's pretty much the right temperature for yeast. You don't want it to be hot to touch. We have to pull your finger out because yeast will die after about 115 degrees or something like that. Might even be a little bit more. I don't remember the exact temperature, but if you have a thermometer, use it. We have a couple cooking thermometers around here. I just do it by touch. So I'm going to take my 1 teaspoon, of yeast, sprinkle that over the top, and let that sit for a few minutes till it starts to bubble up. You can do that. Ahead of time. If you want, I'm doing that for the sake of TV. I'm sorry I have to stretch my cord here so you can hear me. And I'll put that back there and just give it a little bit of a mix. Turn that around a little bit. Now this bread is one of my favorites because it doesn't have a whole lot of ingredients. Plus you can do a lot with it. You can add, we bought black olives. We added black olives, onions, and garlic and put it right into the dough and mix the dough up. It was pretty fantastic. So you can do sun-dried tomatoes. You can do all kinds of different stuff when you're making this bread because it's very, very versatile. This is like your standard Italian style bread.
It's the end of the olive bread.
Yeah, we got rid of that pretty quick.
Yeah.
It was pretty good. So here's just a recap. You had the sour mix from the night before, and that was the sour mix was 1/2 teaspoon of yeast, 1 cup of warm water, 1 cup of sour mix, which is in here, is in my refrigerator. Now, when you take this out of the refrigerator, you got to make sure you mix it up really good. Even if it turns a darker color, it's not going to hurt you. Sours have been used for years. This is your California style sourdough. The longer it stays in the pan, overnight, you don't want to go farther than that. The sourer it'll taste. and you'll take that texture in the bread after you start to cook it. So this is an awesome thing. A lot of people in artisan style breads, they don't even use yeast. They use their sour to leaven their bread. It takes a long time for it to rise though, and it has to be optimum temperatures in the bakery for that to work. But we give it a little boost with a little extra yeast in here and then also in the bread, so this doesn't take like 2 days to make. Otherwise it would take quite a while, but it would be phenomenal bread. Okay, so after I've got all this mixed up, we got your flours in here, the bread flour, and just to recap, I had 1 cup of water in here, lukewarm, about 110, 115 degrees, don't go much higher than that. 2 teaspoons, or 1 teaspoon of yeast, and then half a cup of the wheat flour and the stone ground, and then two and a quarter cups of the bread flour. Honey, will you hand me the kosher salt?
Yes. Actually, it's right by mistakes.
I like to use kosher salt. When I measure salt, I usually use about a tablespoon, so I'm going to do that by hand and just kind of put that in there because I like my bread a little on the salty side. Now, keep in mind, salt does kill yeast, so you don't want to oversalt, and you want to make sure that your bread does rise. So what I'm going to do now is, you don't have to use a mixer for this. If you don't have a mixer, you can do this by hand. It just takes a lot of work and a lot of extra kneading, and I'll show you what I mean by kneading if you don't know. So we take the yeast mixture now and we pour it into there. Jerry, take that away.
Yep.
And I'm going to lock my mixer in and I'm going to start mixing it. Now, to get the texture that I really need, I'm going to push this back a little bit because I'm going to use this surface to knead the bread on. To get the texture that I want, and I will show you what to do, and to get that texture, I'm going to have to step away here for a second because we're going to have a word from our sponsors.
Our first sponsor is the GU Crew. Thank you for joining us.
And for those who don't know who the GU Crew is, we are real estate professionals, and we're off today because of what you're doing too. Staying home with your family because you were ordered to. So that's the whole reason we're doing all this. And so now the dough's mixing. And usually what I like to do is, let me go over and grab one of my scrapers. My lovely dog. We're pretty low tech here. So stop it. I used to scrape down the sides. Get all that extra flour that's on the sides. So sometimes it will just pick it up, but a lot of times you just give it a little bit of help. It's coming together a really nice dough right now. Also keep in mind when you're mixing dough, the more you mix it, the warmer it gets because it's just friction. It'll heat the dough up a little bit. Jerry, we turn this oven on for a minute?
Yes.
I'm turning the oven on because I use my oven as a proofer. Now I don't want it to get too hot, so I set it for 350 and we'll turn it off in about 5-6 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. So it gets warm in there, and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to proof. Jerry, I need you to rinse out that orange bowl for me. So the dough's coming together really, really nice. And what I'll end up doing is adding a little bit more of the bread flour, just a tad, because I want to tighten it up a little bit, and I'll show you what that looks like so you can kind of get a feel for it.
Can this be wet?
No, gotta dry it out. And spray it with spray it with oil, or bring me the oil, I'll spray it.
Okay.
So I'm tightening up the dough a little bit now. It's coming together really, really nice. And what you really want is a very elastic type of dough. It'll, and I'll show you how I measure that when I get it mixed for you. I'm turning it up 1 notch on speed. Thank you. What I'm also going to do while that's mixing is I spray this bowl with a little bit of pan oil so it doesn't stick to the bowl. It makes an awful mess. So I do that in preparation for it to sit in the oven, and we're going to pause when we do that. And while this is mixing, let's have another word from our sponsor.
Just a quick thank you to Wild Dandelions Acres LLC, located in Stockbridge. A lot of great people stepping up. Saw your post, giving chickens to the community to help people. So thank you very much. Thank you, Eli.
Yeah, this is amateur hour today, isn't it? But we're having fun. Okay, so dough's mixing quite well. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove it from the mixer because I'm going to take it and I'm going to show you the kneading process. This is where you really kind of build up your hands a little bit. So I take a little bit of the bread flour, spread it out on the countertop. You don't need a whole lot. And this is kind of what our dough looks like today. All right, it's very smooth. And then we're going to knead it. And really what I'm doing is I'm folding over. I hope you can see this part. I'm folding it over and just continuously fold it over. And it's smoothing out the dough quite a bit. This people have been doing for years. I mean, before they had mixers, people had to make their dough. And people baked bread quite a bit, back in the day when you couldn't buy it as ready as you can today. So now I just form it into a ball, pop it in there. Take my plastic wrap, because I like to recycle, and I already used this to cover the bowl before. And I put that over the top. And Jerry, that rag over there, I'm going to need that. I take a dish towel from the drawer. I'd taken this out earlier. And just place this over the top. Jerry, I'd like you to I'm going to turn that oven off.
Okay.
Make sure your oven is not terribly hot, because you don't want to, I'm coming over on this side, so you probably can't see me. You don't want to, overcook it while it's in the oven. You want your temperature in the oven, around 175, so it's warm enough to really raise the dough. You're going to leave that in the oven for about 45 minutes to an hour. It's going to take a little while for that to double in size, and then we will be back. But before we go, we would also like to say thank you so much to the folks at Ugly Dog in Chelsea, Michigan, for making sanitizer for the local firemen and police. We saw them giving it out today, and we'd like to say thank you so much for that, because I believe you did it pro bono. And so when you're in Chelsea, when all this madness stops, stop by your local Ugly Dog distillery and have a drink on us. Okay, we are back with the magic of television, or video, whatever you want to call it. We have now proofed the product. I have to go back and make a correction. I made a little bit of a mistake in my measurements. So I'm going to, for those that wrote it down, I'm going to go through the starter first. That's after you make your starter. That was all correct. That was, to make a starter is 0.25 of an ounce of dry yeast, okay, to 2 cups of warm water, no hotter than 115 degrees, and 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Mix that in a bowl, pour it into a mason jar, put a loose lid on it so it can breathe, put it in the refrigerator. When you take that out, the mixture I made a mistake on is I didn't cut it down, because I only made 1 loaf instead of 2 like I normally do. So I'm going to go back and talk about the starter that was in the bowl the night before. Is actually a 1/4 teaspoon of yeast, 1/2 of a cup of warm water, no hotter than 115 degrees, 1/2 a cup of sour, that's this, and 3/4 cup of bread flour, the bread flour, okay? So that's the only adjustment. The rest of the stuff was spot on as far as measurement goes. So what I'm going to do now, all right, good. Now my head doesn't get cut off, even though there's no head up there anyway, it doesn't matter. So now I proofed this in the oven, just to no hotter than, I think I said, you don't want to be over 175 degrees actual temperature in the oven. So I'm spraying a little bread flour here, and what I'm going to do, see that's proofed, is take this off, okay, and I'm going to pour this out on my floured surface. I'll put this over here, and I'm going to knead this, okay? I'm going to knead it one more time. We're going to bring this down. We have flour on the table, and you can see that now it's reducing in size, but it's nice and warm, feels great. So we need that the same way we did before. Now I'm going to make it into a ball. Now what I'm doing here is I'm pushing underneath the dough and I'm making a ball, and that's part of the balling process there. And I'm going to go back to my piece of plastic that I'm going to recycle because I like to recycle. You can ask my wife, drive her crazy.
Oh my God.
And I'm going to put this on top and let that rest for another about 15 minutes. And I'm going to cover it with this towel. Let that rest for 15 minutes, and we will be back after a minute. Okay, we are back. Dough has been rested. I'm going to show you a few things because what I do, and Jerry, will you set that to 425 degrees? I'm setting the oven to 425 degrees. And once that's done, I'm going to show you a couple things. So first of all, I use a paddle, which is a pizza paddle, to transfer my bread to the oven on a stone. I use a cooking stone in the oven. You don't need that. I just have to have that because I like the texture of the bread. So, what you can do is you can get a sheet pan such as this. Sorry, it looks dirty, but it's really not. And you can put parchment paper on that if you'd like. I use parchment paper you can buy in the store. Put that on the pan like that. And then I also would recommend using cornmeal on the parchment paper. It keeps the, it goes on the bottom of the bread, it keeps it from sticking. If you don't have parchment paper, which a lot of people don't, then you can put the cornmeal right on the pan. Don't spray it, just put cornmeal in the pan, not a lot, just sprinkle a little bit on the bottom. It'll keep the bread from sticking to the pan. So we're not going to do that today. I'm going to give that back to my lovely wife. And what I'm going to do is I take the parchment paper, I put it right on top of the what I call peel, and you call it a paddle. Put it right on the peel, as such. And then we go back to the dough that's been sitting here for about 15 minutes, resting. And could you take that out there,
Sorry.
please? Thank you. Could you take that, put it back over there?
Yeah.
Thank you. We take the bread, and now it's sufficiently rested. Take a little bit more flour. I sprinkle it over the dough, and I'm hoping you can see this part, but I'm thinking you probably can't. I'm going to edge this a little bit down here. This is, yeah, I think you can. So the dough is here. It's still warm. It's still rising a little bit. So what I'm going to do right now is I am going to put this over here, and I'm going to move this up to the cutting board. And put a little bit, so you can probably see it easier up here. So I'm going to put a little flour up there. I'm going to move this to the cutting board. Oh, you can't even see that, so I'm not going to do that. So I am going to adjust this down a little bit because you probably would like to see what the heck I'm doing here, folks.
There we go.
I think that's easier. Now my head's going to get chopped off, but that's okay. So, and I bumped my head into this a few times already. So now the dough is perfectly relaxed, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to push it down just a little bit, very gently, and I'm going to stretch it out like this, and so now it's almost oblong, and drop it down. Now some of the air is going to come out, that's okay. And then I'm going to take one part and I'm going to fold it over and I'm going to push down. So now I'm sealing that first fold. Okay, now the second fold, I'm sealing the second fold. Now I'm not knocking a lot of air out of the dough. As you can see, I'm only going around the fold. Then I go to that last fold, which is making now a tri-fold pocket. And now I'm going to roll the dough like this. Now this is your typical Italian loaf. And I'm going to roll the dough on the edges, back and forth, just rocking it like a little baby. And I'm going to let it set. Now you get these pointed edges just like this. My wife's taking pictures so she can put that on Facebook as well, so you see the pictures later on. So now you have a piece of dough that's kind of like a, it's thick in the middle and it goes tapered down to the sides. And honey, if you could put the peel back up here, the paper. So we have the peel ready to go. I'm going to put the dough, and you have to be very careful not to knock a lot of air out of it. So you kind of just grab it, pick it up like this very gently, and you place it onto the peel like that, or your pan with your cornmeal in it. So now I'm going to let this sit. And again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, I use bags because I like to say this might not be terribly sanitary, but I don't like to use a lot of plastic because it ends up in the ocean and I hate that. So what I do is I take plastic bags. Honey, will you grab me a
Yes.
couple plastic bags? No, not those, the ones in the cabinet, the front cabinet. Oh, you know what? No, here, excuse me.
Oh, you're right.
So I grab a couple plastic bags that we've had, that we get groceries in, things like that. I know now's not the time to be saying, oh my God, those are not sanitary. Yeah, I get it. But I use these because I do not like to pollute the earth with a lot of plastic. So basically what I do is I cover this with the plastic on the peel. I go back to my original
This is how we do
towel, and I put this over the top of this, and then I sit this by the oven, which we turn on to 425 degrees, and some of the heat's going to come out of that oven, and this is going to proof more. It's going to double in size, and I'll be back to show you what we do after that. So thank you so much. I'll be back. Okay, we are back. Now, we've put the bread out as a loaf now to proof one more time, and this is what we have. So I'm going to put this over here. And I hope you can see all this. So once the bread sat for a while, it got twice the size, around twice the size, and I'm using the parchment paper with the peel. And I take my kitchen scissors, which are these, and I'm going to score it so when it rises it doesn't tear apart. Okay, so I'm taking my scissors and I'm making 3 cuts. 1, 2, 3. So those 3 cuts, and I don't know if you can see that or not, but I will push up here so you can see it a little bit better. It's very bright. The 3 cuts. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in the oven and I'm going to bake it at 425. And here's the hard part. Everybody asks me, well, how long do you bake it for? Well, and my answer is bake it till it's done. Okay, everybody loves that.
He says that every time.
But you bake it till it's done. So you bake it until it's brown on top. And when you tap it, it sounds hollow. That means it's done. It's really hard to overbake bread. You just don't want to burn it. Nice golden brown on top, nice brown on the bottom. I use a stone so the bottom cooks a little bit more. So this is where I'm going to stop. And so when we're done, we will take pictures of the end product and we will place those as still photos on Facebook. Guys, I just want to say one more time. We did this for a reason. We love our community. We know everybody's hard hurt right now. We did this for a distraction. And I might do some more in the future, depending on how long this lasts. But again, I go back to my original thought. Please keep your community in mind when you're gassing up, when you're buying items at the store. We have a lot of community people right now that are hurting because there's no business. And again, we're all in this together, and we really need to help each other. So be kind, be safe, and this is a lot.